I started karate when I was 4 years old. By the time I was 13, I was spending a lot of time in the dojo, training, traveling to competitions, and winning. But I was confused because the protective equipment I was wearing, the gloves, the boots, the helmets, the same gear we were all using was crummy. And over time, it was getting worse. People would buy new gear, and the companies were finding new ways to cut corners and shave a nickel off here and there. And this seemed counter to the entire ethos of the martial arts. The idea that over time we refine things and make them better. It just didn't make sense. And when I wasn't training, I was jealous of my friends because they had hats from the teams they played on or jerseys from their favorite pro athletes. As a martial artist, I had no way to tell the world about my passion, except for the cheap Bruce Lee t-shirt my mother bought me at Walmart. As I got older, that confusion turned to complete frustration, as after nearly 30 years, nothing had changed. So I decided to change it. My name's Jeremy Lesniak, and I founded Whistlekick because martial artists deserve products that reflect their passion. I'm here today for two reasons. First, I'm looking for connections to people who have experience in the sporting goods or the apparel industries, as well as help with our $250,000 expansion. Here's the problem. Martial arts equipment has always been crummy. It's poorly designed. The materials don't lend themselves well to being long-lasting. People don't like wearing it. Small children are even prone to getting their toes caught up in the boots and broken. That's the opposite of protective. And despite all of this, it doesn't even last that long. The average is only 6 to 12 months. And this is where Whistlekick comes in. By using better materials and smarter designs, we reduce the problems that martial arts are used to experiencing across the board. No more broken toes or training unnaturally. I often get feedback from customers saying how much more comfortable our gear is. I've even had parents come to me and tell me that their small children who won't wear pants at home refuse to take off their Whistlekick gear. And all of this comes with an average lifespan of over 3 years. The industry's paying attention to everything that we're doing. People love what's going on. This is Donovan Barrett. He's a Taekwondo instructor from Miami. He not only teaches people in Miami, but also on the line. And a good number of those folks come to him for, you might have guessed, flexibility training. With hundreds of thousands of people paying attention to his YouTube channel, he can choose to support any brand he likes. And in a number of those videos, he chooses to wear Whistlekick. We've never paid him. He chooses to wear Whistlekick because he believes in what we're doing. Every martial artist knows that they're better for the time they spend training, and many of them now see their passion reflected in Whistlekick products. And this creates a tremendous opportunity. With more than 7 million people in the United States practicing the traditional martial arts, that's karate, taekwondo, kung fu, and a few others, they're spending over $300 million every year on equipment. Globally, there are 250 million martial artists practicing the same styles and purchasing the same types of equipment. Which leads to an important question. Why haven't the entrenched players done what we're doing? Frankly, they can't. They can't shift from a 6 to 12 month sales cycle to the 3-year sales cycle that would put them on parity with our gear. They can't build an affordable, long-lasting product with the margin they need. They've spent decades competing with each other on price, racing to be the least expensive. That doesn't create branding that people want to showcase. While passionate hockey fans have their Bauer shirts and people wear Callaway to signal their love of golf, no one wants to wear anything from these brands, which, until Whistlekick, left us with Bruce Lee shirts. This is 2017, and if you want to be a top brand, you need strong content. At Whistlekick, we have the world's #1 traditional martial arts podcast. While they have infrequently updated blogs and repetitive social media, we have a bi-weekly show with 233 episodes listened to in more than 130 countries. Financially, we've done well, and we'll continue to do well. In fact, our monthly sales are up 61% from my last road pitch presentation just a couple months ago. We're on track to more than double last year's sales, and we're going to continue that solid growth. But we'd grow that much faster with some additional funding. We're on track for $1 million in 2019 and $2 million in sales in 2020. With the quality of the products that we're turning out and the hunger the industry has shown us, I see no reason we won't continue that steady growth. I founded the company in 2010, and we had our first products in 2013. The podcast came in 2015, and I want to highlight two of those guests because they best showcase the success of the company and the way the world sees what we're doing. Junri, the father of American Taekwondo, the first person to teach Taekwondo in the US. He's been on our show. And Fumio Demura, one of the most beloved martial artists in the world, best known for his role as the stunt double for Mr. Miyagi in all the Karate Kid movies. He came on between his dialysis appointments. Earlier in 2017, I realized I was spending too much time working in the business rather than on the business. So I outsourced warehousing, hired employees, and delegated one-time tasks to contractors. Which brings me back to why I'm here. I'm looking for help, looking for connections to people who have experience in the sporting goods or the apparel industry, as well as help with our $250,000 expansion via loans and convertible notes, so we can bring on more inventory, develop new products, and expand into additional online marketplaces. I've created the company that the 13-year-old me wanted so badly. It's an honor to be here with you today, and I'd like to invite you to join me in my mission to bring quality gear and apparel to the 250 million martial artists of the world. Thank you. Judy first.
I have a two-part question. One is, I'm assuming you sell the actual equipment that was in some of the pictures, but you never
Yes.
actually said if it was shoes or gloves or helmets. So that's what you sell, and then the other stuff was branding, the t-shirts and that
Correct.
kind of thing. So I'm a little concerned that with a 3-year shelf life, but you're targeting 13-year-olds who are growing. As a parent, that confuses me. So like as a ski industry person, I say, well, I love the lease program for really good, high-quality equipment that I can give back at the end of the season because little Johnny is going to be bigger next year. So how are you looking at that with a 13-year-old guy and you who wants high-quality equipment but is going to have a bigger head and a bigger foot the next year?
Sure. So the typical experience, the idea of outgrowing this stuff, believe it or not, works in our favor. Because the typical experience that most people have is that their equipment will fail before they outgrow it. And what we're seeing is that there is actually a secondary market that has been created in some schools that has never existed before because our equipment lasts so long. People will buy it, they'll wear it, they'll use it. It's wrinkled, it still works perfectly fine, but then as the children outgrow it, they're selling it to others in the school. And we're actually encouraging that because we were plenty fine to be known as the company that makes stuff that lasts that much longer. Yes, yeah, Patagonia is doing some wonderful stuff and we're following it, absolutely.
Alan next.
Thanks, nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Can you talk a little bit about margins? You talked about you're a much higher quality than the less expensive ones. Can you talk a little bit about what higher quality means when it comes to what you're selling and give us some idea of what kind of margins you're working with on a wholesale sales basis?
Sure. So when we talk about quality, the things that we're talking about not only the durability of the product, but also the customer experience, the comfort of the product, and you know, I alluded to that in the pitch, but also the functionality of the product. One of the major differentiators in our boots is that they're the only brand on the market that doesn't have a strap under the ball of the foot, which is where people put the majority of their weight when they're moving around, when they're doing martial arts. And what we're finding is that competitively, the early adopters in our early years were focused on competition. And that's had a trickle-down effect. So people have seen that there's actually an enhanced usage from our product versus others. And margin varies quite a bit depending on the channel. For example, Amazon, which is the majority of our sales, we're right around the 20% mark once everything's said and done, all the expenses. But then the retail side, we're up in the 50%, 53%. Wholesale is down around that 20% as well.
Thanks.
Hey, Jeremy, good. Thanks for the presentation. You know, something I was thinking, kind of Judy's point, from a parent's selling perspective. Have you thought about being able to, can you say that your equipment is safer than the cheap stuff? Because I guess what I say from parents' perspective, if you tell me my little Johnny might not get a concussion using your product versus cheap product, I'll buy it all day long. Sometimes how much, maybe to Judy's point, how much it lasts, well, he's outgrown a year. Maybe I don't care if it lasts 3 years. But if you tell me it's safer, I think that's a different discussion, so.
Sure. And the idea of trying to standardize safety in an industry that has resisted standardization at every level for thousands of years is not something we're going to be able to tackle lightly. We do want to address standardization, the ability to say, this is better, but there's no direct test that we can offer right now that says this is better. We can talk about shock absorption, we can talk about all of that, but the idea of, again, the example of children's toes caught up in the boots. Our largest wholesale account is a half hour away from our largest competitor because of that exact reason, because they had multiple children in their school break their toes. And that's how they found us. They went searching on the web for something different.
Susan?
Have you ever thought of getting involved with something like the American Society for Testing of Materials, which is all about toy safety, consumer product safety, and getting your product, writing a method about it, or getting some specifications? Or...
That's a world I know nothing about. If
Okay.
you're able, I'd love to talk to you after.
Yep.
Steve, next.
Great presentation, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Who is doing your manufacturing for you? And where are the materials coming from? Because my concern would be, have you put into your financial projections if you're doing it in a foreign country, what happens if all of a sudden things skyrocket?
Yeah, so our products are made in Mexico. I've been to the factory. China was something that we really needed to hold off on initially, because anybody that's ever had anything made in China, you've probably done some research, you've probably seen the horror stories of stuff getting knocked off, and that wasn't something we could handle early on. But the factory in Mexico, there are no factories in the United States that will make this stuff. There's a lot of petroleum stuff involved, and my suspicion is that by the time OSHA gets involved, the prices get jacked up beyond what is sensible. But it's a small brother and sister run business. I've been there, I'm on my way back in a couple months, and they're good folks, and we are slowly, if we're not their biggest customer now, we're darn close.
Savant?
Great presentation.
Thank
Super
you.
polished.
Appreciate it.
You showed us projections without capital and with capital. Can you tell us a little bit about how that capital is going to help you grow faster? What are you putting it towards? How's it going to make the difference?
Sure. So the interesting thing that has happened with this company is that we can't keep up with demand. So as we start to get some traction across all of our platforms, including Amazon, we'd run out of stuff because we could only afford to buy so much. We've gotten to a point now where with the single product line, with the gear, we have that on track, and that's doing well. There's some trajectory there. For those that aren't familiar with the Amazon selling platform, on the back end, the moment you run out of stuff, Amazon will take a very long time to show your stuff again in a search. Okay, so it creates this, and that's what we dealt with for years, and I could show you the Amazon numbers. What I've learned is that if we can't hit the market with enough inventory to last multiple purchase cycles, by the time that gets transported, there isn't a lot of point. So we've continued to invest in that first product line. The money goes to the additional product lines, uniforms, belts, other styles of gear. Does that answer your question? Sure. Okay.
Alan, got to be a quick question.
Quick, why don't you stop selling to Amazon and sell to the people? Why don't you stop selling to Amazon where you have no margin and use that inventory to sell to people where you can actually make money?
It's a fantastic question. 75% of all buying decisions start on Amazon. Amazon is the place that we have been able to carve out the biggest niche because our competitors are entrenched directly to the school with the wholesale accounts. The majority of people that are buying equipment, and I spent 2 years banging my head against the wall trying to solve this problem, it's their schools and it's Amazon. Amazon is the place that we've been able to differentiate. We've been able to market our products better photographs, better write-ups, etc. Amazon comprises 93% of our sales.
Great, thank you, Jeremy.